Hi, Jason Knott with CE Pro, and today we're talking about Multiroom Audio, and I'm excited to be joined by Joe DeJesus, Product Manager, Custom Installation for Lenbrook. Joe, thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, let's jump right into it. Why is software such a key element for multi-room audio systems today?
Well, software has a lot to do with how the customer interfaces with the product. It is where the rubber hits the road. And how a customer basically interacts with the software can make for a pleasurable or a non-pleasurable experience. One has to take into account that he's not strictly interacting with the music system. In many of the cases, he has many other components that are automated in his home, whether it be intelligent lighting or security system. So we recognize that we are just one component of many that he may be interacting with it in his home. The interface needs to be intuitive, and it needs to be relatively easy for them to find their content, because their content may come from a variety of places. It might come from a personal library. It might come from streaming. It might come from a bunch of internet radio stations that he likes. It has to be relatively easy to use, and that makes for it being pleasurable and makes them come back for more and try different things. If you're not able to do that, the customer tends to be reluctant, and it's just overall not a good experience for them.
You know, you hit on my next point that I wanted to talk about, which was that intuitive interface. You know, customers are using so many different types of devices today to access their content. How important is it to have a unified user experience like Blue brings?
Well, we have spent a considerable amount of time and effort to, of course, make it as intuitive as possible, make it relatively easy for a customer to find what it is that he wants, and give them enough latitude to carry out some of the functions that they want, whether it be creating their own playlists or finding, enough detail in what they're looking for, but still not make it cumbersome, not make it difficult to understand. The other thing that's incredibly important is whether they're doing it on a smartphone, which might be Android, or using an iPad, or using a PC in another room. There has to be a certain sense of uniformity across the three, so that the design cues from one interface to the other are relatively consistent, so they're not relearning something different that has to apply to an Apple ecosystem versus an Android ecosystem versus a PC. It has to be something that they can rely on to find the same things in roughly the same places and go through the same steps.
How should integrators explain or even demo, if they have to, the differences between a platform that can play high resolution audio files and one that can't?
That's kind of like the holy grail right now, because I think for the longest time there was this kind of misconception that you could either be very refined or very detailed audio, or you could be convenient. And the reality is that the two things are not mutually exclusive. People gravitated to basic MP3 formats that they could, put on their phone, and didn't really expect a certain level of performance. As a result, performance took a back seat, and it got the stigma that in order for it to be good, it had to be cumbersome. Now it's relatively easy to be able to demonstrate to a customer how good something can sound. Obviously, CI companies don't have the ability very often to be able to show a fundamental basic MP3 versus a high resolution file. Very often they're speaking about it conceptually, but very much like they had to speak about it conceptually when they were doing video, the difference between a very fundamental 480 signal up to 720 to 1080, eventually to 4K. And let's face it, 4K for the most part is a conceptual cell. What they're able to do is use, terms that a customer might be able to relate to, like FM quality, like what they could expect from a radio station, or they'll use terms like CD quality. They're conceptual. It doesn't require you to do an actual demonstration, but it gives the customer an idea that this is probably as good as it will get. This is as close as it will be to what was originally recorded with that level of refinement, with that level of resolution, with that kind of resonant detail that exists in a master track. They just have to be able to explain to a customer that there is something better than what they became used to when they were introduced to the convenience of accessing music.
Joe, tell us, what are some of the benefits of the BlueOS system in terms of system design?
That's a very good question. I think to the designer, it just offers a tremendous amount of flexibility. And to the customer, it offers them kind of a transparency to what's being done on the design side. And by that, I mean, if you look at how somebody can design and incorporate BlueOS into a distributed audio system, there's a variety of ways to skin the cat, so to speak. So you can incorporate BlueOS into a system design by adding some of our rack-oriented product, like our 580, which is a multi-zone, basically BlueOS platform for streaming. You can incorporate one of our a brilliant piece called the CI 720, which is in essence streaming and amplification into a format. So all of that can reside on the rack, hidden away from the customer. But let's say that the design requires you to incorporate BlueOS into another part of the home where you haven't run the cable, it's not incorporated into the main system, and you want to put, for example, a Blue Sound power node in a room with a customer's favorite pair of loudspeakers. You can do that. You can incorporate one of our sound bars into a secondary room where all you want is that as an interface for sound of a TV that's a secondary space. Or what we're presently on the eve of is a product by another speaker company, which we've partnered with for the past little while, called Dolly. Dolly's has incorporated BlueOS into their new performance powered product called Callisto. So you can incorporate a variety of different designs in order to solve the customer's need, but to the customer, all they see is the same architecture, the same sort of ecosystem as to how they would interface with their music system. So an incredible amount of latitude to the system designer, but to the customer, the exact same way that they would interface with their distributed audio system.
Great information and a lot of flexibility there for integrators. So Joe DeJesus, product manager, custom installation at Lenbrook. Thanks for joining CE Pro today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.